the first time in his NBA career, Russell Westbrook was not on an NBA roster for training camp. And, he's 506 points away from being the top scoring point guard of all time.
For the first time in nearly 2 decades, Russell Westbrook, MVP, All-Star, Triple-Double King, was left without a team. Now, the Sacramento Kings just changed everything. After months of rumors, Brody is back, teaming up with DeMar DeRozan in a move nobody saw coming. Let's break down how it finally happened. A 9-time All-Star without a home. Picture this. It is October 2025, and for the first time in nearly 2 decades, one of the NBA's most electrifying point guards finds himself in uncharted territory. Russell Westbrook, the 2017 MVP, 9-time All-Star, and holder of the all-time triple-double record with 203 career triple-doubles, is sitting at home without an NBA team as training camps open across the league. This is not just unusual. It is unprecedented for a player of his caliber, especially one who, just months ago, was providing crucial energy off the bench for the defending champion Denver Nuggets. Westbrook entered free agency after opting out the final year of his contract with the Denver Nuggets in July 2025, marking the 3rd straight offseason he has tested the market. This was not a trade scenario at all. The Nuggets waived him earlier in the offseason, making him an unrestricted free agent. So, when we talk about Westbrook potentially joining the Sacramento Kings, we are talking about a free agent signing, not a trade. But why does this distinction matter? Because it reveals something crucial about how the league views Westbrook at this stage of his career. Not as a valuable asset worth trading for, but as a potential minimum contract veteran that teams are hesitant to commit to, even at that bargain price. And it is just sad to see what he is actually going through. We are talking about one of the greatest point guards of all time. Now, let's talk about what we actually know regarding the Sacramento connection, because this is where things get both interesting and frustrating. On October 10th, 2025, ESPN insider Shams Charania appeared on NBA Today and described the mutual interest between Westbrook and the Kings as strong, noting that this interest has been ongoing for months. Look, I am told there is strong mutual interest between Russell Westbrook and the Sacramento Kings, Charania said. These are not just casual whispers in league circles. The Kings met with Westbrook shortly after the free agency period began in July, signaling that he was an early priority for them as they look to address their bench production issues. But here is where frustration sets in for anyone following this saga. We are not talking about complex contract negotiations or salary cap gymnastics here. We are talking about a potential veteran minimum deal, approximately $3.3 million for the 2025 to 26 season. So what is the holdup? Why is a 9-time All-Star who averaged a respectable 13.3 points, 6.1 assists, and 4.9 rebounds per game last season still sitting at home? Let that sink in for a moment. Westbrook is approximately 450 points from passing Oscar Robertson for most points by a point guard in NBA history, 25,762, yet he cannot secure a roster spot. This is the same player who, in his most recent season with Denver, showed he could still contribute meaningfully to a championship-caliber team. Playing 75 games off the bench for the Nuggets, Westbrook shot 44.9% from the field and an impressive 34.2% from three-point range, his best three-point shooting percentage since 2020. He was not just a veteran presence collecting checks. He finished 7th in Sixth Man of the Year voting and even recorded a perfect triple-double in December 2024 with no misses or turnovers. But statistics, as impressive as they might be, do not tell a complete story of why Westbrook finds himself in this position. There is a narrative that has been building around him for years now, one that gained momentum during his tumultuous stint with the Los Angeles Lakers alongside LeBron James and Anthony Davis. That Lakers experience, where Westbrook struggled with fit, averaging 4.7 turnovers per game, and eventually being benched in the 2022-23 season, created a perception problem that he has been fighting ever since. It did not matter that he rehabilitated his image somewhat with the Clippers and then the Nuggets. That narrative of being a disruptive force or not fitting modern basketball had already taken root. At 36 years old, turning 37 on November 12, 2025, Westbrook's high usage, attack the basket style is admittedly at odds with how most modern NBA teams operate. His career 43.8% field goal percentage and 30.5% three-point shooting are below league average. And in an era where spacing is paramount and teams are launching 35, 40, 43 pointers per game, a guard who is not a consistent outside threat presents real challenges for offensive schemes. Critics argue that he has played out, that his style is a relic of a different era, that the game has passed him by. But here is what makes the situation so maddening and, frankly, so sad. We are not talking about a player who is completely washed. We are not discussing someone who cannot keep up physically or who has become a liability on both ends of the floor. Last year, off the bench, he averaged 13, 6, and 5 while being one of the leading 6 men in the league for the Denver Nuggets. And he is not on the roster. He looks like he could still definitely help a team. We can show him 3 months ago. The numbers support this. Westbrook's 2024 to 25 season with Denver saw him average 19.8 minutes per game while contributing 13.3 points, 6.1 assists, and 4.9 rebounds with 1.4 steals. Production that any contending team would welcome from their backup point guard. He maintained a respectable 44.9% shooting from the field, and his veteran presence was invaluable for a Nuggets team trying to defend their championship. So why, then, is he sitting at home? This is where we need to have an uncomfortable conversation about ageism, perception, and the business side of basketball that nobody really wants to acknowledge. There's a growing belief among players and observers that something more insidious is at play here because, at the end of the day, like you said, yo, it's Russ, it's Brody. These are conversations that I've had with multiple players. Okay, in the NBA, the term blackballed is loaded with implications, and we need to be careful about throwing it around carelessly. But what we can say definitively is that Westbrook is one of the most notable unsigned veterans alongside players like Ben Simmons and DeAndre Jordan. And a lack of interest in a former MVP who can clearly still play is, at minimum, highly unusual. Carmelo Anthony, who went through a similar experience in his final playing years, has weighed in on whether Westbrook is being blackballed. And his perspective carries weight because he lived through this exact scenario. The broader context here is crucial. Most contending teams filled their roster spots early in free agency, and the Kings themselves held off partially due to salary cap constraints and a failed pursuit of Jonathan Kuminga, who extended with Golden State in late September. But that does not fully explain why a player of Westbrook's caliber has not received more concrete offers from teams around the league. Other links to teams like the Milwaukee Bucks via Kendrick Perkins and Houston Rockets after Fred VanVleet's injury have fizzled, leaving Sacramento as seemingly his best and perhaps only realistic option. What makes this even more poignant is that Westbrook has personal priorities that are limiting his options. He wants to stay on the West Coast for family reasons, being close to his LA roots, and he has all-star weekend commitments in his hometown, which rules out mid-season overseas jumps. Interestingly, a lucrative overseas offer from China has been reported, approximately 4 times the Kings' rumored bid, around $10.9 million for a half season. But Westbrook is prioritizing NBA options because of his legacy and his proximity to breaking significant career milestones. So, here we sit in mid-October 2025, watching one of the greatest point guards in NBA history navigate what could potentially be the final chapter of his playing career. The Sacramento Kings remain the front-runner for his services, with insiders suggesting a deal is potentially imminent if roster and salary cap logistics align, possibly at the veteran minimum of approximately $3.3 million for the 2025 to 26 season. But potentially imminent is not the same as done, and every day that passes without a signature raises more questions about what is really happening behind the scenes. Yeah, Russ is a legend, and I think he deserves to be in the NBA right now, and I think he deserves to walk out of the NBA on his terms. That quote, by the way, comes from Kevin Durant, Westbrook's former Oklahoma City Thunder teammate, and someone who understands both his greatness and his complexities better than almost anyone. The fact that even KD feels a need to publicly state that Westbrook deserves to be in the league tells you everything you need to know about how strange and unsettling this entire situation has become. The Sacramento connection. The Sacramento Kings are a franchise at a crossroads, attempting to build something sustainable after decades of mediocrity. And their interest in Westbrook is rooted in some very specific needs and circumstances that go beyond just adding another veteran presence. The Kings finished last season with a 40-42 record and a first-round playoff exit, which sounds respectable until you realize that they are operating in a loaded Western Conference where that kind of record puts you firmly in play-in territory. They are not bad enough to rebuild, but they are not good enough to seriously contend, which is perhaps the most frustrating place for any franchise to be. The offseason brought significant changes to their roster construction, and these moves explain why Westbrook's name keeps surfacing in their discussions. First and foremost, the Kings made a blockbuster trade involving their franchise cornerstone De'Aaron Fox, which fundamentally altered their backcourt composition. Fox, who had been the face of the franchise and their primary ball handler, was shipped out, creating both an opportunity and a challenge for GM Monty McNair. The trade brought back assets and cleared salary, but also left them with significant depth concerns at the point guard position. Concerns that have only been partially addressed through their subsequent moves. To replace Fox as a starting point guard, the Kings signed Dennis Schroeder to a 2-year, $30 million deal. Schroeder is a capable starter, a veteran who brings playoff experience and solid two-way play. But he is not Fox. And more importantly for our discussion, he does not solve their depth problem. Behind Schroeder, the Kings have Keon Ellis and rookie Nick Clifford, both talented young players who need development time rather than being thrust into significant playoff rotation minutes. This is where Westbrook enters the equation. I kind of look at Russell Westbrook like a backup quarterback in the NFL, where it is like, the season is just starting and the moment a good team drops a guard, Russ's phone is going to be the first one that gets picked up. But the Kings did not just address the point guard position. They made several other moves that paint a picture of a team trying to compete now while maintaining some flexibility for the future. They acquired DeMar DeRozan in a 3-year, $75 million sign-and trade from the Chicago Bulls, bringing in a proven scorer and mid-range assassin who can create his own shot in crunch time. They also added Zach LaVine via trade from the Bulls in the Fox deal, giving them another dynamic backcourt scorer with deep Chicago and LA ties, connections that matter when we talk about roster chemistry and off-court relationships. The current core now features Domantas Sabonis, an elite playmaking big man who averaged 23.5 points and 13.2 rebounds per game last season. Alongside DeRozan's scoring prowess and LaVine/and space abilities, Malik Monk remains a key bench piece capable of providing instant offense. It is a roster built around versatility and scoring punch. But here's the problem that keeps bringing them back to Westbrook. Last season, their bench ranked dead last, 29th in point per game at 32.1 and assists at 8.2. That is not just bad. That is catastrophically bad for a team with playoff aspirations. So now the mindset and the thought process of Russ coming into training camp later, it is just looked upon totally different. So Russ has got to work extra hard to keep that level of integrity and respect with this group. This is where the Westbrook fit becomes both intriguing and complicated. ESPN's Shams Charania emphasized that Westbrook has relationships across that organization, and these connections run deeper than you might realize. Sabonis and Westbrook have history from their Oklahoma City and Indiana overlaps. Schroeder played alongside Westbrook during the Lakers' stint, and perhaps most significantly, all three of the major additions, Westbrook, DeRozan, and LaVine, are LA products. Westbrook from Compton, DeRozan from Compton, who share mutual respect from their time in Chicago and around the league. The theoretical role for Westbrook in Sacramento would be straightforward. 15 to 20 minutes per game off the bench as a reserve point guard, providing a change of pace spark when Schroeder needs rest. His transition push, evidenced by 1.2 steals per 12 minutes played last year, could complement DeRozan's isolation scoring and help push the pace. The Kings ranked 8th in pace last season, but were 15th in fast break points, suggesting room for improvement in transition offense. His playoff experience, including a 14-5 record in closeout games, could add the kind of grit and veteran poise that a relatively young roster, average age around 26, desperately needs when games get tight. Analysts like former NBA guard Fred Jones have noted that Westbrook has a clear role as a spark plug, not a starter, which aligns perfectly with what Sacramento needs. But not everyone agrees. The Kings' Hero analysis points out potential problems. Yes, they need a backup PG. No, Westbrook is not a good fit. Due to concerns about stealing minutes from developmental players like Clifford and Ellis who need court time to improve, the spacing concerns are real and cannot be dismissed. Westbrook's career 30.5% three-point shooting and his poor three-point volume could clog lanes for Sabonis and DeRozan, both of whom do their best work inside the arc. In Mike Brown's motion offense, which relies on ball movement and floor spacing, having a guard whom defenders can sag off presents real problems for offensive flow. Westbrook averaged 3.5 turnovers per 36 minutes last season, and while that has actually improved from his earlier years, it is still a higher rate than you would ideally want from your backup point guard. Then there is the age and durability factor. At 37 years old, the wear and tear of 17 NBA seasons is undeniable. Can he hold up playing 15 to 20 minutes per game over an 82-game season plus playoffs? The consensus among analysts seems to be cautiously optimistic, but far from unanimous. Kings radio host Carmichael Dave has given 70-30 odds that Westbrook will be a viable short-term boost if minutes are properly capped. Some YouTube analysis has been harsher, calling him a horrible fit, old and inefficient for Sacramento's needs. The reality likely falls somewhere in between. He could provide value in a strictly defined role, but only if both he and the organization commit to that role limitation. Which brings us to perhaps the biggest obstacle to this deal actually happening: the roster crunch. The Sacramento Kings are not expected to sign Russell Westbrook unless they make room by trading a guard. Per multiple reports, this is not just about having an open roster spot. The Kings have a guard logjam that would require a trade, possibly involving someone like Davion Mitchell, to free up both roster space and preserve development opportunities for their young players. ESPN's Mark Stein reported that the Kings halted trade talks around Malik Monk and are looking at other avenues to add Westbrook to the roster. But finding a trade partner willing to take on salary just to help Sacramento accommodate a 37-year-old veteran on a minimum deal is not easy. Shams Charania noted, "We will see if a deal gets done before the season or during, which tells you everything about how uncertain the situation remains." The Kings' season opener is scheduled for October 22nd against the Phoenix Suns. And as that date approaches with no deal in place, the likelihood of Westbrook starting the season unsigned increases. And here is where things get really problematic for both parties. We do not want to bring you in because you might hurt the chemistry. So it is a lose-lose situation in that. If he is not on the team now, he may not be on the team within the next couple months. And then after December, it is like, yo, you have got to wait till January 15th. This is a nightmare scenario for Westbrook. The endless waiting game where teams keep putting off decisions until it's too late to integrate a new player into their systems. The longer he sits unsigned, the less attractive he becomes as an option, because no team wants to disrupt chemistry mid-season by adding a high-profile veteran who needs time to learn plays and build relationships. It is a catch-22 that has trapped other veteran players in recent years. And it is exactly what Carmelo Anthony was warning about in that video clip. Fan sentiment in Sacramento is, to put it mildly, divided. Kings Herald comments show approximately 80% negative reaction, with fans viewing potential signing as owner Vivek Ranadiv's big-name vanity project rather than a basketball decision. The criticism focuses on concerns about reducing youth development minutes, questioning the competence of GM Scott Perry as a Vivek yes-man, and arguing that better alternatives exist, such as trading Sabonis for draft picks to fully commit to a youth movement. Social media echoes this sentiment. Posts range from side-eye gifts to questioning. Why does not Westbrook just wait for a contender? Legacy, uncertainty, and what this all really means for basketball. One needs to zoom out and look at what this Russell Westbrook situation really represents. Because this story is about so much more than one player trying to find a team. This is about how the modern NBA treats its legends, about the intersection of analytics and human value, about ageism in professional sports, and ultimately about a player who revolutionized the point guard position trying to find dignity in what might be his final act. Russell Westbrook III, born November 12, 1988, in Long Beach, California, is the NBA's all-time leader in triple-doubles with 203 in the regular season, plus 13 more in the playoffs. That is not just a record. That is a monument. He has amassed 20,550 career points, 9,468 assists, and 8,378 rebounds over 17 seasons, numbers that place him among the elite at his position in any era of basketball. He is a 9-time All-Star, 9-time All-NBA selection, 2x first team, 3x second team, 4x third team, and a member of the NBA's 75th anniversary team. He led the league in scoring twice, 2015 and 2017, and in assists 3 times, 2018, 2019, and 2021. His 58-point game in 2017 remains etched in NBA lore, as does his record 11 consecutive triple-doubles that same year, tying Wilt Chamberlain. Internationally, he won gold medals at both the 2010 FIBA World Championship and the 2012 Olympics. But here is what makes his career even more remarkable. He spent his prime 11 seasons with the Oklahoma City Thunder, becoming the franchise's all-time leading scorer with 23,557 points. He led OKC to the 2012 NBA Finals, where they lost to LeBron's Heat, and he famously scored 43 points in Game 4 of that final series. He overcame multiple knee surgeries in 2013 to 14 to return and average a triple-double for 3 straight seasons. His post-Thunder journey has been tumultuous, absolutely, but even that tells a story worth examining. His time with the Los Angeles Clippers saw him embrace a bench role, recording 4 triple-doubles off the bench to set a record. And then came Denver, where he signed a 2-year deal, served as a spark plug off the bench, and finished 7th in 6-man voting. The man adapted, evolved, and showed he could contribute without needing the ball in his hands constantly. So why, then, is he sitting at home? The things that you built your career off of, and people fell in love with you about, is the same thing that is your downfall right now. Like, it is hindering you right now from being on a team because now you created such a monster, and a monster in a competitive way. This quote from Carmelo Anthony gets to the heart of the matter. The very things that made Westbrook great, the intensity, the refuse-to-lose mentality, the emotional investment in every possession, have become liabilities in a league that increasingly values coachability and system fit over raw talent and competitive fire. It is a sobering lesson about how quickly the league can turn on its stars once they are no longer producing at elite levels. But here is what is most troubling about this entire situation. Westbrook proved last season with Denver that he could still help a championship contending team. He averaged 13.8 points on 41.9% three-point shooting in Denver's first-round playoff series when over the Los Angeles Clippers. Those are not empty stats. That is meaningful production when games mattered most. Yet, he declined a $3.4 million player option with the Nuggets, presumably seeking either a bigger role or a multi-year deal, and now finds himself without any offers at all. Carmelo Anthony's comments about whether Westbrook is being blackballed carry extra weight because Melo lived through almost this exact scenario, a future Hall of Famer reduced to accepting minimum contracts and abbreviated roles just to stay in the league, eventually retiring on his own terms, but only after years of fighting for respect. Russ did not get waived. He did not get cut. He was just a free agent. And now he's got to now go and see, where do I fit it into my roster? Melo makes an important distinction here. Westbrook was not cut or waived, which makes the blackball terminology technically inaccurate. But the underlying question remains, why is there so little interest in a player who can clearly still contribute? Kendrick Perkins has been vocal about this, stating he should be on somebody's roster and pushing for teams like the Milwaukee Bucks to sign him. The fact that we are even having this conversation about a former MVP is remarkable. Other potential suitors have been discussed. The Milwaukee Bucks for backup guard depth and rebounding support for Giannis, the Boston Celtics for bench scoring and playoff experience, the Houston Rockets for a hypothetical KD Westbrook reunion and point guard depth after Fred VanVleet's ACL injury. But all of these remain speculative, with no concrete offers materializing. Meanwhile, Dwight Howard has suggested Westbrook could make $12 million on a China tour if no NBA deal comes through, which would be financially lucrative but would effectively end his NBA career and prevent him from reaching those milestone achievements he is so close to. Where is Russ in that situation? He could say, "Man, this game, like, I am done with this. Y'all want to carry on like that? I am walking away from a game." We would take our hat off to Russ. We would feel bad about that, though, because we know why you're walking away from a game. Westbrook is approximately 450 points from passing Oscar Robertson for most points by a point guard in NBA history, 25,762. He is already 8th all-time in assists, having passed Robertson in that category in March 2025. He is on the verge of joining the exclusive 25,000-point and 9,000 assist club. This is a nightmare scenario. Not that Westbrook retires, but that he feels forced to retire when he still has something to give. The basketball community would understand what happened, would recognize the injustice of it, but that knowledge would not make it any less painful to watch. We have seen this pattern before with other greats, and it never gets easier. Russ is in a conversation of legacy. What is the pro? We are talking about legacy. Let us protect the legacies of these players. Not somebody who has been in the league 5 years, 6 years. No, this is somebody who has put in pain, pressure, #1 jersey sales, MVP of the league. Like, this is what Russ did. Melo's words here should resonate with every basketball fan. This is not about rings anymore. Westbrook's legacy is secure regardless of whether he wins a championship. He is a Hall of Fame lock with his statistical accomplishments and sustained excellence. This is about dignity, about respect, about allowing a player who revolutionized his position to walk away on his own terms rather than being pushed out by a league that has moved past his style of play. If and when Westbrook does sign with Sacramento, and I still believe it will happen, even if the timing remains uncertain, it will not be the triumphant conclusion to a storied career that he deserves. It will be a veteran minimum contract, limited minutes, a strictly defined role with no room for the kind of freewheeling creativity that made him special. He will likely play those 15 to 20 minutes per game, provide that energy and leadership, help mentor younger players like Kean Ellis and Nick Clifford, and try to push the Kings from play-in contention to a legitimate playoff threat. And if he does that successfully, it might just be the perfect ending. Not flashy, not headline-grabbing, but meaningful and valuable in its own right. The reunion with DeMar DeRozan, his fellow LA native and former Bulls teammate, would add a nice narrative touch. The opportunity to play alongside Sabonis, whom he knows from their OKC days, could create interesting on-court chemistry. The chance to reach those career milestones, passing Oscar Robertson as the all-time leading point guard scorer, would give the season stakes beyond just wins and losses. In summary, while not official yet, a Kings signing feels inevitable, barring a surprise move like a Bucks waiver claim. It would pair Westbrook's fire with DeRozan's finesse for a playoff push. But success hinges entirely on role clarity, and both sides committing to making it work. Well, that is it for this video, but do not go anywhere, because we have got plenty more heat for you. Just tap any of the cards on your screen right now, and keep it locked.